Welcome back. We're going to do the forearm muscles for this episode. We have 8 in the front, 12 in the back. I know 20 sounds intimidating, but don't be scared. Ready? For the 8 anterior muscles, we can divide it into 3 layers. There's a superficial layer, there's a middle layer, and then a deep layer. The equation you're going to remember is 4 minus 1 equals 3. 4 minus 1 equals 3. Those 3 hand signs are going to help you remember origin, insertion, and the layout of each muscle along the forearm. So for the 4, what we're going to do is take your left hand, your thumb represents the origin. It's going to go on the medial epicondyle of your right hand. Okay? So you're going to lay out your 4 muscles going down like this, and we're going to run in order. Some people like to remember PF, PF. What I like to remember it as is the last PT place I used to work at. We had this running joke that what would be a great combination would be having a sandwich while you're waiting for your stim to end. So PT and sandwiches, that's the grand concept, that's the future. So what we're gonna do is remember it as PT palm sandwich. I don't know what a palm sandwich is, but that's just how I remember it. Because the first muscle, the PT muscle, is going to be the pronator teres. It goes from the medial epicondyle and it goes on the lateral radius. So notice how my 2 fingers indicate origin and insertion. Function of the pronator, obviously pronating the forearm. Next, we have our 3 flexors. That's what makes our palm sandwich. We have the second muscle is the flexor carpi radialis. It's pretty simple to remember because who's texting me? So the flexor carpi radialis goes from the medial epicondyle all the way down to the wrist joint. It attaches to the base of the 2nd and 3rd metacarpal. And then what it does, as you can imagine, is it flexes the wrist but also causes abduction of the wrist. Next we have the palm, the middle of the sandwich. It's the palmaris longus. It goes down and attaches to the palmar aponeurosis and the flexor retinaculum. That's what runs across the palm. That in combination of the carpal bones creates the carpal tunnel. And then the second piece of bread, the last muscle, runs from the medial epicondyle all the way down to the base of the 5th metacarpal. And what it's going to do, it's the flexor carpi ulnaris. It also hits the pisiform. It's a sesamoid bone that rests on top of the hamate. It also attaches to the hamate, the hook of the hamate. If you can imagine, the muscle goes down and it splits into a hook. One goes into the base of the 5th metacarpal, and then the other goes over the pisiform and the hamate. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So, just to review, medial epicondyle, lateral radius, pronator teres, PT. Then we have our sandwich. We have the medial epicondyle, the base of the 2nd and 3rd metacarpal, does flexion and abduction. Then we have the palmaris longus, which goes into the flexor retinaculum and palmar aponeurosis, and then that will flex the wrist, also it'll tense the flexor retinaculum, and then the flexor carpi ulnaris goes into this little area right here, which is the pisiform, the hook of the hamate, and the base of the 5th metacarpal, and that will flex the wrist and adduct the hand. 4 minus 1 represents the middle layer. That is the flexor digitorum. It runs from 3 heads that are up here, and it goes to the base of the middle phalanx of digits 2 to 5. You can think of middle layer is the mitten hands. Middle layer, mitten hands. The reason why it's mitten hands is because when you're wearing a mitten, all you can really do is this, right? So what it's going to do is it flexes the wrist, but also bends the fingers only up until the middle phalanx, the phalanges. Hand sign represents the 3 heads from where it originates. It actually looks just like this. You can see right over here, this is the elbow joint anteriorly, the right elbow. You're going to have your radius out here, the ulna here, humerus here. So when you use this little layout, you're holding your hand out like this, the middle finger is the humeral head, so it goes where all the flexors were originating. Then this right here, the ulnar head, will touch this side of the coronoid process of the ulna. So if we look at it from the side, see how it hooks out? It's going to touch right where my finger is. Alright? And then the thumb represents the radial head. So the 3rd head of this muscle actually reaches just inferior to the radial tuberosity. Then we have the 3 deep muscles represented by the equals 3. The reason why I don't do this is because this actually shows the layout of the muscles. We have 2 running down the forearm and 1 crossing over. The first deep muscle we're going to focus on, it starts from the lateral and anterior aspect of your ulna, and it runs down. This is actually the strongest forearm muscle that we have. It runs down and hits every single digit to the base of the distal phalanges. So the middle layer was mitten hands. This one, however, curls the fingers all the way in. And then to complete the fist action, to flex the thumb in, we have the flexor pollicis. This is the pollex longus. It's longest because the brevis is actually within the hand. Then the last muscle equals 3. Notice how my finger points towards the lateral side. So it's going to run from here to here. It's actually the 1/4 of your ulna to 1/4 of your radius, but it creates this blocky shape, I'd say a rhomboid, and it goes in this path from ulna to radius. That is the pronator quadratus. We have the pronator teres, which was the first muscle we covered. Pronator quadratus is the last muscle we covered. 3 muscles that form that punch action. We have the flexor digitorum profundus, curls the hand fingers in all the way. Flexor pollicis longus flexes the thumb in, and then we have the pronator quadratus, which will pronate at the wrist. For the function, all you have to remember is pronation, flexion, abduction, flexion, flexion, adduction. We have mitten hands, and then punch for the last 3. Most of the muscles start on the lateral epicondyle. So what you have to remember are the different insertions. Remember this pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 4 is going to be our high 5 muscle. So 1, 2, 3, high 5, 5, 6. Okay? When we start, the first muscle, number 1, is the brachioradialis. We already went over that. It goes from the humerus to the radius, and what it's going to do is flex the elbow. And then the second and third ones are the extensor, carpi, radialis, because it's on the radius side. Extensor, carpi, radialis. This one is the longest. This one is the brevis. Longest, brevis. So 3, 4, 5, 6, or all originating from this common tendon that starts at the lateral epicondyle. So because the brevis is starting from the lateral epicondyle, I know that the longus is longer. It's actually going to start just above it on the supracondylar ridge. So if this is our humerus, this is the ball. This is my very, very short humerus. Right over here is the supracondylar ridge. The bottom third is where it's going to originate from, attach right over here. Extensor, carpi, radialis. And then we have from the lateral epicondyle, extensor, carpi, radialis, brevis. I'm sorry, this was longus, brevis. And then 4, remember, was our high five muscle. What causes high five? That is the extensor digitorum. We have from lateral epicondyle, and it goes to the dorsal side, not the palmar side. The base, it runs all the way to the base of the distal phalanx of 2 to 5. However, if you look at it on a diagram, it actually webs right in the dorsal surface of your hand, and then within each finger it comes out into 2 and joins back up again. Comes, connects, and it splits into 4 down each digit, and then for each digit you'll see a little bit of a loop. What it's going to do is extend the wrist, extend the fingers, and also abduct the fingers. I didn't mean to include the thumb. The thumb is separate. Pollex is separate. We're only talking about the fingers. Extensor, excuse me, extensor digitorum. And then we have, so that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So extensor digitorum, extensor digiti runs from also the lateral epicondyle all the way down to the dorsal digital expansion of the pinky finger. What it's going to do is it's going to extend the 5th, but also extend the wrist and adduct the hand. The extensor carpi ulnaris also runs from the lateral epicondyle, and what it does is it inserts into the tubercle on the lateral aspect of the 5th metacarpal. So right over here. 1, 2, 3, high five, 5, 6. Those are your 6 superficial muscles. For the 6 deep muscles, I made up a little skit. Where is the money? I don't know. Get out, get out. You still owe me. So those represent the functions of the 5 deep muscles. The first one we already went over, the anconeus elbow extensor. The supinator is up top. It actually goes from the lateral epicondyle, the posterior ulna, the radial collateral ligaments, and the annular ligaments. I know that's a lot to remember for the origin. Maybe all you need to know is that it's on the back side of your elbow, but it runs to the lateral radius, the lateral aspect of the radius. Why it's important that it goes here is that it acts in opposition to the pronators. The 2 pronators that we had the pronator teres and the pronator quadratus. It is on the opposite side of the pronator teres, so they're acting in opposition of each other. Pronator, supinator, pronator, supinator. So we have one supinator proximal. Supinator was the part of the skit where it went, where's the money? The next part was, I don't know. I don't know. You see how the thumb is abducting. So if this is the midline of the hand, it's abducting. This is adduction, abduction, flexion, extension. Abductor pollicis longus is actually going to start from the posterior ulnar radius as well as the interosseous membrane. You know how a drill sergeant will say left, 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 right, left? So instead of that, you can remember middle, left, right, left. When you're looking at someone's arm, their right arm, the origin of the last four deep muscles are going to be middle, left, right, left. Keep in mind, the middle, left, right, left muscles all start from the inner osseous membrane as well as something else. So it's posterior, radius and ulna, and the interosseous membrane. It's coming down and going to the lateral aspect of the base of the first metacarpal. So lateral aspects because it's going to pull the finger out. The next part of the skit was get out, get out. That represents the function of the next two muscles. Left, right, so we're going proximal and distal from your body. The longest is on the ulnar side. It's actually the middle third of your forearm. It goes down to the distal, the base of the distal phalanx of the pollex. The brevis, which is on the radial side, posterior aspect of the radius, and it comes to the proximal base. Both are going to cause this extension of the thumb and the abduction of the wrist. Get out, get out. Left, right, left, and the last function, extensor indicis, is going to the distal posterior ulna down the digital expansion posteriorly of the index finger. It's going to cause this. So reviewing the functions along with the skit, we have supinator. Where's my money? I don't know. Abductor pollicis longus. Get out, get out. That's the longus and brevis of the extensor pollicis, longus and brevis. And then we have eustomi, extensor indicis. Simple. When I first try to pick up nerves, I didn't know where to start, but I realized when you group it together, it becomes a lot easier to put in your head. So, musculocutaneous, remember, was the anterior humeral area, and then we had all of our extensors were radial. Now that we're adding in the forearm, 1, 2, 3, superficial, 1, 2, 3, brachioradialis, the extensor carpi radialis, extensor carpi radialis longus, extensor carpi radialis brevis. So 1, 2, 3, going up the arm, and all of our extensors are radial. Everything else is deep radial. So Inconius was an extensor, our 3 triceps were extensors, and then the 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3 up, radial, everything else deep radial, posteriorly. So if someone were to ask you, what nerve innervates the extensor digiti minimi? I don't know who would ask you that in their right mind besides your anatomy professor, but let's say some common person asked you, then you'd be like, deep radial, I already know because it's not part of the 1, 2, 3 up. Get it? We already covered the musculocutaneous. When we're looking at the forearm, it's pretty simple. There are only 2 muscles you have to worry about that are ulnar. Everything else is median. Okay? So the 2 muscles that you're going to worry about, it makes sense that the ulnar nerve is innervating the flexor carpi ulnaris. Remember that muscle. And then it also, the flexor digitorum profundus, remember how it goes along and down the 4 phalanx 2 and 5? What it's going to do is innervate the last two fingers. If someone says, hey, what is the flexor carpi radialis innervated by? Median. Quick review. Musculocutaneous. 1, 2, 3, up the arm, radial. All others, posteriorly, deep radial. Anterior forearm, we have 2 ulnar, everything else is median. Now moving on to the arteries, just for review, the biceps were the brachial, and remember how in the last video I said it helps for me to pinpoint where the arterial line is. The radial recurrent artery was supplying the blood to the brachialis and the brachioradialis. I have a rule now, just going down the arm, it's 1, 2, deep 3. 1, 2, deep 3. 1, 2, deep 3. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it's brachialis, brachioradialis, and the supinator, which is a deep muscle in the posterior arm. As for anterior forearm, all the superficial and middle layers are supplied by the ulnar artery. Ulnar artery. Just remember it's the opposite. So the nerves, remember, most of the anterior forearm was median and very few ulnar. For the arteries, it's mostly ulnar. Only the deep muscles are supplied by the anterior interosseous artery. The triceps are deep brachial, brachial in front, deep brachial in the back, and then you can remember for the radial artery is that P sign means what? That's rad. So the extensor carpi radialis longus, extensor carpi radialis brevis is going to be supplied by the rad radial artery. And playing upon what we said about the deep muscles being supplied by the anterior interosseous artery, posteriorly, same thing. The deep muscles are supplied by the posterior interosseous artery. But not just the deep ones, the deep and anything controlling the digits. So the extensor digitorum and the extensor digiti minimi, they are included with the deep muscles. So deep anterior muscles, anterior interosseous artery, deep and hand, deep and fingers, I should say. Deep and fingers are posterior interosseous artery. That leaves one muscle. That leaves the extensor carpi ulnaris. That actually gets grouped with the ulnar arteries on the forearm. So that's the only muscle on the back side that is supplied by the ulnar artery. Alright, thanks for tuning in. Next time, I think I'll go with the hip joint or the ankle joint. I haven't decided, so whatever I feel like studying, you'll get it next. It's not bad.